Emotion suppression is actually one of the questions that I ask myself whenever I formulate these principles that I have written down in my journal or have formulated in my head. Is what I'm doing a form of evasion and suppression of emotion so that I may not deal with it? I soon realized that there is a need for us to make sure that we are not suppressing any sort of emotion, but instead, we should inject the acknowledgement that there is an emotion in the first place so that we could realign ourselves, so that we could make an action plan based on what we are feeling in the first place. Because if we suppress too much of our emotions, we give ourselves no time to actually process what we have felt. And that in turn uh, puts so much burden on you due to the number of unresolved conflicts that you should have already figured out, that you should have already rationalized on why you are feeling a certain way. Emotion suppression is basically, in essence, is when you completely shut off or you know prohibit yourself from actually feeling that certain emotion. But the principles that I have suggested so far to myself and to this channel actually does not aim to suppress any sort of emotions. It might seem that way because I'm always talking about how we should change our perspective on things, how we should always see how we could turn things around and make it into a positive. I'm not talking about toxic optimism. I'm not talking about ignoring your emotions as a human that can feel emotions in the first place. I'm suggesting that there is more to emotions than we think there is, simply because we think the emotion is the endpoint. There's a lot to emotion if you think about it, because it has so much roots and causes that are either obvious to us at the offset, or maybe it's rooted deep into our reasoning, into our conditioning, into our essence as who we are. And who we are is a big topic, which I'll talk about in the next recording, most probably. But there's so much burden on us to process the emotion in the first place that it's tempting to just suppress it. The the journey of actually processing the emotion requires you to acknowledge the fact that there might not be even the need for the emotion to be completely absent. Because there is some temptation to think, or some gravitation to think, that a negative emotion should be eliminated, in essence, because of how we it does not fit our ideals of what a happy person should be, or what the idea of a happy person we have built in our head. Instead, we could actually just allow us to feel the emotion and acknowledge that emotion is not something we can entirely control. Like, okay, yes, you've felt the emotion. Can you control what emotion you are feeling in the first place? Like, more often than not, you're not some sort of robot that is working on prompts. There is no certainty that you are working, you're existing second to second, dictating your own emotions. Like at uh at 12:10, I'm going to be happy. At 4 o'clock, I'm going to be sad. At 6 o'clock, I'm going to be ecstatic. You just feel the emotions. Are you going to suppress that, or are you going to um want for it to stop immediately? And absolutely not. Acknowledge that you're actually feeling something. Allow yourself to feel it and process it in such a way that you're not rationalizing or convincing yourself how to eliminate it, or you're trying to convince yourself that you should eliminate it immediately, but try to see why you're feeling that emotion in the first place so that you could find something you can control, which is modulating or seeing what you can do regarding the root causes of that emotion so that you could tackle it in its essence. You could tackle the emotion in its essence and not tackling the emotion just for the sake of you not wanting to feel that emotion. Last year, I was actually a bit depressed, and it takes a lot of self awareness to know that you're sad, to know that you're losing a lot of interest in things. You're losing what it means for me to be happy. So I was slipping out of my ideal mood. I was slipping out of my ideal definition of what it means to be a happy me. But instead of me wanting to convert that sadness into happiness immediately, I was trying to rationalize the factors that could be contributing to why I was feeling sad. Only after me acknowledging that I cannot control that I'm sad in the first place. So I've actually, in my journey last year, I've actually noticed a lot of things that could be contributing to the sadness that I was feeling in the first place. And I was handpicking them one by one and seeing what I could control. Do you get do you get my emphasis there? Seeing what I could control. I'm not implying that if I find the root cause, I'm going to force control. Because there's so much comfort in knowing that if you can't control something, you cannot. Because I'd rather be sad if I fail to change something that I could have changed instead of wasting energy and time on being sad on something that I cannot even control for one bit. So if I find the root causes of my emotion, I could find something I can control. And that is enough comfort for me to start dealing with the emotion. I'm not wishing for the absence. I'm not wishing for the complete reversal of my emotions. I'm wishing for myself to learn from the experience so that I may um, deal with my emotions in such a way that I am striving for something useful in the future. Like, for example, a lot of the things that we react to, a lot of the things that elicit our emotions, a lot of the things that elicit any strong emotions, actually, or the things that are hard to process, the things that are very hard to grasp. We don't have to want to grasp it immediately, in so much that we are magically removing it from our emotion, because that's impossible. That's robot stuff. That's robot activity. We are humans. If we take them piece by piece, if we take them in small increments so that we may comprehend the whole picture, then we are striving to improve, not for shallow reasons, but for reasons that are beyond our temptation to do things the fast way. It also applies to anger. If you're angry, if you're angry at something, or someone, it makes no sense to just wish for you to calm down immediately, because you're not dealing with the emotion in its essence. You're just dealing with the emotion in the sense that you are working on your ideal definition of a stable emotional state. If you are angry, try to try to analyze why you're angry in the first place. And sometimes your anger is valid, right? Sometimes your anger has basis. If you simply just wanted to calm down, just for the sake of calming down, you have not processed the emotion. You have just changed your current emotional state, but did not address the root causes of your emotional state. And I hope I made sense in this recording, because, and I will expound on it more in future recordings, but emotion is one of the scariest things to deal with and one of the scariest things to tackle. And it's very tempting to just want some certain emotions to just poof and just vanish. But we are risking ourselves from feeling the same emotion again without knowing exactly why. We should be the masters of our own emotion and not our own emotions control us. Since if we acknowledge that we are humans that feel, it is not that we feel it is what will get us preoccupied, since we can't control feelings. It is why we feel a certain thing which will be worth our time, since we are striving for a better you. I hope I made sense in that recording, and I'll hopefully talk to you in the next recording.